I mean, here's a guy who's listening in on creative, but like, aren't we on the same team? What does any of this matter? Why do you think Paul just rubbed Stephanie the right or the wrong way? And did he do it on purpose, or what do you make of this report?
Well, in her view, Conrad, Paul betrayed the trust of Stephanie. So it doesn't matter. I don't disagree with you. You'd think that the lead writer on the show that's being taped the next day, would be informed as to what was going on. So in other words, like this, Stephanie's got a cage match planned and Raw. Well, that would give Heyman the opportunity to make a decision. Do I duplicate another cage match or do something else? Well, the logical answer is probably to do something else. So, and set that pistol. So I think he should have been listening anyway. But he wasn't welcome. They want to separate and they have competition and all this other shit.
It seems weird though. I mean, like, I don't know anything.
It is weird,
but
it shouldn't seem weird, Conrad. It's fucking weird. It's egos, politics, and all that dog shit. Heyman was lucky he didn't get fired. Very, very lucky.
Process what we're saying. Heyman was lucky he didn't get fired for doing extra work.
I don't know.
Like this is not the enemy. It's not like WCW was listening to the call. This is the other show that works for this same company. And I mean, once upon a time, again, I don't know anything about wrestling, but I was under the impression if we had 8 matches on a card, it was someone's responsibility to go and see, hey, what are the finishes? We can't have 6 schoolboy finishes here. We can't have, if we got blood in the later matches, we can't have blood in the earlier matches. Yeah. If we run an individual show that way, why would we not want to run the company that whole way? Why would it not be good that creatively what's going on the other show so you don't accidentally do the same thing at the same time?
They're just trying to create some structure and a plan. Again, going back to that, have a plan, have an idea, don't be a cabbage. And that might be a t-shirt that Bull could work on. Don't be a cabbage, all head and no rear end.
It's written here in the Observer, how long Heyman remains in the doghouse is unknown, although some people within WWE believe he won't be welcomed back at all. Vince McMahon had to basically talk Stephanie into accepting Heyman onto the creative team last time, and it may be difficult for Stephanie to be convinced Heyman can be trusted at this point. We've seen before that there have been personalities that didn't mesh. I mean, it's no secret that Bruce Pritchard and Stephanie didn't get along the best in the world once upon a time. That feels like 100 years ago now. Was that the case with Heyman as well? Do you think the Heymans and the Bruces of the world felt like, hey, this girl, she's just Vince's daughter. She doesn't really know as much about wrestling as we do. We've been in this for decades. Come on now. And they handled it that way. And so therefore she got her guard up, or is there something else?
I think some of her soldiers are a little disrespectful to her because she was the boss's daughter and a woman. Her gender didn't do her any favors in that respect, in my opinion, which is just embarrassingly absurd. Paul has a way, look, to put Bruce Pritchard and Paul Heyman in the same category as being guys that could stir things up. And I've known Bruce since, forever, 30 years, since the Paul Bosch days, the Cowboy Bill days. He ain't in Paul Heyman's league when it comes to stirring the shit.
Heyman keeps everybody wound up.
Well, he's just good at it.
Yeah.
He's smart as hell, man. He can read you like a book. And I think, I read in our notes that he did an interview about this later on.
Yeah, he admitted it to Stone Cold on Stone Cold's podcast. He admitted that this was true. So it's not a big secret anymore. But I just think the whole thing, like he's in trouble for what?
Yeah.
Like creatively, it would feel like
he violated Stephanie's trust.
Yes, that's the key thing. I get that.
That's what he did. And that was enough. That was enough to cause the situation to manifest itself. And, he's just good at stirring the shit. And he likes to have information. But I can tell you this, having him on the roster is a good thing, because I got a feeling, and I haven't talked to Paul in a long time. I got a feeling he's deeply involved in shining up the finishes and some of the creative for his charges, all those Samoan dudes. So, and that's good. They're lucky they have him, in my opinion. And Triple H knows Paul's got a great booking mind. If he's focused on one thing, one entity, like the bloodline, for example, then he can do great work. Every idea won't be acceptable, but most of them will. He's got a method to his madness, and he's brilliant. So, but he outsmarted himself on that deal. And like I said, he's lucky that he didn't get fired. But WWE, and the long story short, they were lucky they still have him, or they have him today. He helps a lot. He adds a lot to the show. Conrad, he's got a issue that concerns me. It's his weight. And this is like the pot calling the kettle black. But goddamn, man, I saw him on TV the other day, and I know he spends good money on getting suits made, things like that. He has to. So, but he's got to lose some weight. And I say that for health reasons, not aesthetics as much as, or his look, his TV look. But goddamn, I can tell he's full of stress. And because if Paul had his way, he'd book the whole fucking thing. And some people are out there saying, well, that would be a bad idea. I don't say that that's the idea that I would endorse. I think he's being used exactly to everybody's benefit. He's focusing on one major thing and not allowing himself to get involved in everybody's story. I love Paul. You can tell I got a lot of respect for him.
Oh, I do too, man. I mean, when I was a kid, there was nothing better than ECW. And I got to say, I know that everybody is always deferential to nostalgia and respectful to the legends. And Lord, I am too. I mean, all of my podcasts are done that way. But it feels like for a long time, people have had the discussion of, hey, who's the greatest manager of all time? And usually the conversation, you get some mentions for Jimmy Hart, but usually you get tons of mentions for Jim Cornette, for Bobby Heenan, and for Paul Heyman.
That's it.
And given the longevity and the influence, it's hard not right now as we sit here in 2025. It's hard not to just go ahead and make a proclamation that Paul Heyman is the very best on-screen manager in the history of wrestling. Wouldn't you agree?
It's hard to argue. It really is hard to argue. I've had great times. All those guys you mentioned, I've worked with as a partner. Heenan, Corny a lot. And then Heyman. I gave Heyman a start broadcasting. The reason being is that the booking group didn't want to deal with him. And I hate to see this son of a bitch who I felt like had a lot of talent. And I was right. Just not be utilized. So I made him my partner on television. And specifically on WCW New York. I think that was on Channel 11 there. So he embraced that whole assignment. He'd get the guy, somebody of his, would send him a fax on the mornings we recorded that had all that page 6 in it out of the Post. It's kind of a gossip sheet, the dirt. So, but it's hard to say. So the other guys did better things than Paul. They were more athletic. Heenan was one of the great bump takers of all time. And any wrestler or manager. Cornette could take bumps, sometimes too good. He was a great promo. Never had a bad promo that I heard, ever. So But Paul's got right there, Conrad. He's right there. They all have different strengths. But Heyman is just has great value as a booker / manager. And basically what he's doing, he's booking the Samoan boys. Seems to me like that's just, and that's how it should be.